if you have been eating less for a really, really long time. Your mood and your mental health is at stake because there's just not enough fuel in the tank to make sure that everything that is important to you is getting the building block that it needs to function. So you're going to see your energy level struggling because now your body's operating on less consistently. It has no idea when its next meal is coming or if the next meal is going to be enough. And it's going to say, all right, well, I just got to back off and I have to conserve as much energy as possible. So if you're trying to go all day long, you just don't have enough energy in the tank to do that. And your body's going to send you the signal of, I'm really tired. I need to take a nap at 2:00 in the afternoon. I don't have energy to play with my kids because I don't even have energy to do the basics of what my body needs.
Welcome to the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Perda. As a marriage coach who's married with 3 kids, I know how much parenthood could change a marriage. If flirting, laughing, and having fun together feels like a thing of the past, then I'm here to teach you that marriage doesn't have to feel so hard with your parents, and your marriage can thrive even when you're in the season of raising kids. Whether you're in a good place in your marriage and you just want to continue growing together, or you're wondering if you even like your spouse anymore, this podcast has something for you. Join me here each week as we dive into what it takes to help your marriage grow, and maybe even do a 180. You'll learn ways to handle conflict better, bring that spark back into your relationship, as well as learn how to improve other areas of your life from my lovely guest experts. Are you ready for the next stage of your life and marriage? Let's dive in. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Marriage and Motherhood Podcast. Today, I am super excited to talk about what probably all moms go through. And I'm hoping that by the end of this, you're going to walk away with so many tips and realizations about how motherhood doesn't have to be synonymous with multiple cups of coffee a day. And that after having kids, that you basically have a sexless marriage because you have no more libido. Okay, so I'm super excited to dive into these topics because I know I have gone through this. And I don't know, maybe it's a fluke, but I no longer experience these things anymore. Maybe I just kind of, stumbled my way on those solutions, not really knowing, but I love it. And I found Brooke here and she was like, oh, I want to talk about these things. It's like, oh, I want to know what you have to say because I kind of want to know, did I do the things that you're about to share? Or are there more things I can do? So hello, Brooke. It's so nice to have you on the show to talk about what nutrition has to do with our energy and also our libido. So please introduce yourself to the listeners. Let us know who you are, what you do, where you live, how old your kids are, everything under the sun.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me on today, Michelle. I am really excited for our conversation. My name is Brooke. I am a perinatal nutritionist who specializes in postpartum and lactation. I am a mom of 2, soon to be 3. I'm currently pregnant with our 3rd. I have a little 3-year-old boy. My baby girl turns 1 on Friday, so 2 days from when we're recording, which is crazy. And I'm a military wife, so we kind of don't really have a home base. We've moved around a lot. We are currently stationed in El Paso, Texas, and we're trying to figure out if we're going to finish our contract here or if we're going to get to move one more time before we're done with the military. I have really just kind of stumbled into what I do just because of my life circumstances. I grew up in the most basic American household. I was part of that got milk generation. So I was having my glass of milk every day. And my mom learned that wheat bread was better than white bread. So we made that swap. And we always had veggies on our plate at dinner. But that was kind of the extent of my nutritional knowledge or passion for most of my life. And I had some different life events that really changed my body and how I perceived health and nutrition. And so I kind of went on this health journey of, I'm going to get back in shape. I'm going to feel good. I'm going to get rid of all this bloating. And then COVID hit. And I was so terrified that I was going to gain weight because I was sitting on my bum all day and I couldn't go to the gym. And we were just on our computers all the time. And that's when my disordered eating kind of started. When I was 22 years old, I weighed 101 pounds at 5'4". So I was very, very, very small. And it wasn't until we tried to get pregnant that all of the other red flags that I didn't know were red flags kind of came to my mind, like came to my attention. And I was like, oh my gosh, like something's not right. So that really sparked my interest in, okay, all the things that I have been doing up to this point, I thought were healthy, but apparently aren't because my body is not in a good place. So I'm going to learn what like real health and nutrition actually is. Thankfully, through this journey, 9 months later, we were able to conceive. I had a great pregnancy, great delivery. And then I had really crippling postpartum depression and anxiety. And I also had low milk supply, but we were a military family. We were on Medicaid. Like we didn't have any resources for me to go see a lactation consultant, for me to go see a psychologist. So I was like, well, I guess I'm going to kind of DIY my way out of all of these things that I'm experiencing. And that's when I learned about everything that we're going to talk about today. That's when I learned about how much our diet and our lifestyle impact every facet of our life and how we can improve all of the symptoms that we have been told are normal about ourselves with really small, simple, intentional changes. And that's eventually what led me to starting the Well Nourished Mama. I focus on holistic nutrition and lifestyle practices to empower moms through every stage of motherhood and show them that no, it's not normal to need 3 cups of coffee all the time. It's not normal to feel empty inside after you have your baby. It's not normal to have all of these things going on with your body that just like aren't great to deal with. And to just share those resources and that education that are currently lacking in our healthcare system for a variety of reasons. So that's how the Well Nourished Mama came to be.
I love it. I know a lot of people who reach for 3, 4, 5 cups of coffee to make it through the day. And I get it. As soon as you become a mom, there's a shit ton of responsibility that gets dumped on your lap that you didn't have before, right? Just the mental exertion alone. Like I remember when I first became a mother figure, because my motherhood journey started out with me being a stepmom. I remember taking my stepson to the park and feeling so tired that I needed a nap after I did that. And I was with my then boyfriend, now husband. And I'm like, what the hell is happening? All we did was go to the park and I am just so done, you know? But before, I would be able to like go out all day with friends and go bar hopping and then do it again the next day and I would be okay. And I'm like, what is happening? And now as a mom, I'm like, I get it. There's just so much thought that goes behind taking care of kids, making sure they're safe, making sure they're well nourished. And there's just so much thinking and planning and the mental load going on. And then you have additional kids. So then it's like more people to think about, right? And then there's the sleep. We never know if our kids are going to sleep through the night or if you're going to be interrupted because they had a bad nightmare or if they're really young and they just are struggling to sleep through the night. I get that it can be so physically and mentally draining. And here you're saying that's not normal to need that many cups of coffee, or in my case, tea, because coffee does bad things to my body. But I bet a lot of listeners are like, okay, must be nice for you to not need it. What are the things that maybe we don't know as a society that you wish more people knew so that they wouldn't feel like they had to reach for so much caffeine, so that they can make it through the day without feeling like the second they close their eyes just for a second too long, they're going to pass out because they're so tired?
Oh my goodness, there is so much to unpack here. First, I want to preface this conversation by saying that I don't drink coffee for religious reasons. So I've actually I've had to do all of my motherhood journey with no coffee because that's just
Wow.
not a part of my life. So I'm not saying that like I once did it and now I don't, and to be like a holier than thou kind of a thing. It's like I've just never had coffee to
Mm-hmm.
begin with. So, um, I know what it's like to be really tired and then be like, all right, well, what am I going to do that's not coffee? That's not what everyone else is reaching for. So I know it works because I've been going without my entire life. First of all, your energy levels are multifaceted. So I don't want our listeners to think that there's one thing that they can change today and then magically everything will be better tomorrow. Especially if you have been in this negative feedback cycle of a whole bunch of things that are affecting your energy levels, and it's habits that have built up over months and years. It's not going to be a quick fix. That being said, the small and simple changes that you can make, you will notice an immediate difference. And as you continue those habits, you'll start to see how much better your life is and how much more energy you have without relying on caffeine. So, the first thing I want to bring attention to is supporting our circadian rhythm. We are woken up in the morning by a hormone called cortisol. It builds overnight. And then there's a spike in cortisol that tells our body to wake up. And that is usually in relation to when the sun rises. If you're a night shift worker, heaven help you, my goodness, I don't know how you function. But for the majority of us, we wake up with the sun, we go to sleep with the sun, right? So cortisol wakes us up in the morning, and you're probably familiar with cortisol as a stress hormone, right? That's what gets released when our body is in fight or flight, when our body's scared, when we're nervous, when we need like that quick rush of adrenaline to go fight the tiger. So that's what cortisol does, is it wakes us up in the morning. And two things can happen. You can tell your body that we're good and that you don't need to rely on cortisol for energy for the rest of the day. Or you cannot tell your body that you're good, and your body's going to think, oh boy, well, I guess we're just running on cortisol today. And that's where that low energy cascade comes from. So how do we tell our body that we're okay and switch from cortisol as our primary source of energy to our food, to glucose, to the nutrients from our food? Well, we do that by eating breakfast. And coffee does not count as breakfast. So if you're listening and you start your day with a cup of coffee on an empty stomach, that is signaling to your body that you want it to use cortisol for the rest of the day. Now, I'm not saying you can't have your coffee, but if you have it first thing on an empty stomach, that's where the very beginning of the chain reaction happens. So eating breakfast is huge. And you want to make sure that your breakfast is high in protein, fat, and fiber, because we want to stabilize our blood sugar levels. We want to give ourselves long-lasting energy that will take us through the morning until it's time to eat again at lunchtime. If you have no idea what a high protein breakfast looks like or how to eat a high protein breakfast without eating 4 eggs, I have a free meal plan that will walk you through that and give you a whole bunch of options that you're like, that's high protein? I had no idea. So that resource is available for you. So supporting our circadian rhythm is going to be probably the biggest thing. And at the other end, so we talked about waking up, at the other end comes the melatonin. If you're not building up enough melatonin throughout the day so that you're actually tired at the right time and you don't sleep well, then you're going to start your day with poor sleep, poor quality sleep, not enough sleep. And your body's going to be like, well, shoot, now I need more cortisol because I didn't get enough melatonin yesterday and I didn't sleep, right? So you can see how it kind of perpetuates. So making sure that you're getting enough protein. The building block for melatonin is an amino acid called tryptophan, and that comes from protein. So if you're not eating enough protein throughout the day, you're probably not getting enough tryptophan to create melatonin so that you can go to sleep. Another thing is making sure that you are aware of when your body is actually tired. This is going to be different for everybody. My husband gets tired at like 9 p.m., bless his heart. That's when he likes to go to bed. My body call it ADHD, whatever it is, I don't really get tired until 10:30, but you can start to tell like, okay, my body's slowing down. It's kind of hard for me to do critical thinking. My eyes are getting tired looking at my phone or watching TV or whatever. Pay attention to those signals and honor that instead of pushing through and saying, well, I'm just going to stay up because I've had a long day as a mom and I deserve me time. That's just going to perpetuate the cycle. So I would say probably the biggest thing is supporting your circadian rhythm. Um, if you want me to keep going, I know I've been talking a ton, but there's a couple other things that really can support our energy from like baseline without really telling you to take away anything out of your day.
Yeah, I mean, if you have more to share, I'm sure the listeners would love to hear it, because I love that you're not just like, saying things that they have to do drastically different. These are just little shifts that we can make to support our bodies in how they actually work. So we're working with them instead of against them.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next thing I would say is make sure that you're eating enough throughout the day. We have grown up with this diet culture of you need to eat less to be skinny. Well, that works for a short period of time if we're trying to go through a very small weight loss phase, but we're not supposed to be living in a permanent weight loss phase. What happens if you are consistently eating less than what your body needs to function? Your body's now going to think, oh my goodness, I am consistently not getting enough of what I need. I have to learn how to operate on less, and I'm going to start to sacrifice these other things that are important for health, but they're not necessary for like immediate living, right? So, libido, not required to live and breathe and move every day. So, if you're not giving your body enough energy and it has to pick and choose between making sure your heart pumps enough blood and if you have sexual desire, it's going to toss your sexual desire because that's not required to stay alive. So you're going to notice these other things like trouble losing weight if you have been eating less for a really, really long time, because weight loss isn't critical to survival. It's nice if we're not comfortable with our body, but it's not critical to survival. Your mood is going to be sacrificed if you're not eating enough, because yeah, it'd be nice to be happy and be alive, but if you have to choose between being happy and being alive, your body's going to choose being alive. So now your mood and your mental health is at stake because there's just not enough fuel in the tank to make sure that everything that is important to you is getting the building block that it needs to function. So that's where you're going to see your energy level struggling, is because now your body's operating on less consistently. It has no idea when its next meal is coming or if the next meal is going to be enough. And it's going to say, all right, well, I just got to back off and I have to conserve as much energy as possible. So if you're trying to go, go, go all day long, you just don't have enough energy in the tank to do that. And your body's going to send you the signal of, I'm really tired. I need to take a nap at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I am really tired. I don't have energy to play with my kids because I don't even have energy to do the basics of what my body needs, right? So eating enough is crucial to make sure that we have enough energy. Now, this magic number that I like to call it is going to be different for everybody. The best way to know your magic number is to work with a nutritionist or a practitioner like myself. You can also go to one of those calorie calculators online and plug in your height, weight, age, gender, and your average daily activity level. And it'll give you a rough estimate of what your body needs. And if you can make a goal to just eat that much consistently, to not skip meals, to not push breakfast until 10, 11 a.m., to not have the mentality of, do I need to cut out? But how can I eat enough? Right? We want an abundance mindset, not a restriction mindset. That's going to make a huge difference as well. The last thing I'll say And we can get into this a little bit later when we get like into specific nutrients, but um, about 40% of the worldwide population, so not just women, not just people in the United States, it's estimated that 40% of the worldwide population has a gene mutation that inhibits their body's ability to convert nutrients into the usable form. This process is called methylation. The primary vitamins that are responsible for methylation and then have a huge impact on your body are your B vitamins. And if your body can't methylate those B vitamins, the very most obvious place that you will notice that is in your energy levels and your libido. So, making sure that you are supporting methylation in your body, and we can get into that, making sure that you're supporting methylation so that when you do eat the right things, your body has the ability to use them. That's going to make a huge difference as well.
That is very fascinating. I have never heard of that. And I'm wondering if I have that.
Have you heard of
um,
MTHFR? Okay, that's what it's called. It's kind of, at least maybe it's on my FYP, my social media, because that's like what I do. So maybe I see more of it. But if you've ever heard of something related to MTHFR, that's what I'm talking about.
okay, yeah, I've never heard of that either. Tell me more about that because I know, like, if anything, I eat too much. And so I definitely don't have a problem with eating. It's more so like knowing when I'm full. And I guess on the other end of things for people, how do they know? Because you keep mentioning like eating enough. What does
Mm-hmm.
eating enough mean? And what we eat plays a huge role too, right? Because before I would eat cereal for breakfast, and after way too many experiences of me basically getting hypoglycemic hours later and crashing, I'm like, I am not eating cereal ever again. So now I don't eat that. I eat like a high protein breakfast with like egg whites, sausages, and sometimes fruit. So like I've noticed a huge difference in that where I don't crash and I have sustained energy until lunchtime. But how would you guide people who are coming from like either end of things, whether like they're wondering what eating enough means and how they can tell if they're eating properly for themselves? Like, what are some signs that are like, hey, you're doing a great job? Or, hey, let's take a look at what you're doing because it's not quite working for you.
Yes, I love that you brought up that example. So what you're talking about is balancing your plate. You noticed that just cereal alone, even if it was enough calories, was not doing what your body needed, right? You were feeling that crash. You weren't getting that energy. You were hungry probably an hour later, and you just didn't feel great. Then you changed how you built your plate. And let's pretend it was the same number of calories, but the calories are coming from different macronutrients. That made all the difference for you, right? So, whether you eat too much or you eat too little, the first thing we need to look at is how you're building your plate. If your plate is primarily carbs, let's say you need 500 calories for breakfast. You could eat 500 calories of carbs and your body is not going to feel satiated. It is still going to be giving you that ghrelin hormone. Ghrelin is the hunger hormone. It's still going to be sending out ghrelin signals because carbs are what I tell my 3-year old, carbs are short energy food. So they do have calories and you could hit your 500 calories. But if it's all short energy food, your body's going to be like, this is going to work for like 30 minutes and that's not enough. So I'm going to keep telling you that I need more food until you give me long energy food. Long energy food is the protein and fat, and then also the carbohydrate sources that have fiber in them. So if you learn how to balance your plate and say, okay, if I need 500 calories, then I need to make sure that a third of my plate is protein and a third of my plate is fat and a third of my plate is this complex carb, this carb that has fiber attached to it, so that I'm getting enough calories, but I'm also getting enough long energy food for my body to be like, all right, we're good. We're going to be good for a couple hours. Now I'm going to signal leptin, which is our fullness hormone, and we'll be good. Now, I also want to say this with a little asterisk, because if you have spent a lot of time suppressing your body's hunger and fullness cues in the name of dieting, or really just telling your body what it needs instead of your body telling you what it needs, this is going to take some time to learn how to interpret those signals. If you've spent years dieting, if you've spent years restricting, if you've spent years saying, it's okay, my body's telling me that I'm hungry, but I'm not going to listen, then this whole intuitive process of listening to when your body says it's good is going to be a little bit more difficult. So, what I would say to that is trust the process. And this counts for people that overeat too, right? If you eat too much, you probably haven't been listening to your fullness cues. And so, how are you going to know when your body's full if you've been ignoring it for so long? So, what I would do is for maybe 2 weeks, be really good about looking at your total number of calories and build your plate so that you have long energy food with some short energy food. And if you're building your plate the right way and you're also sticking to that number, do that for 2 weeks and kind of see if you notice any changes in your body, whether you're not needing a snack, or you don't need coffee at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or you don't need a nap at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Try and notice those differences and then see, okay, I'm starting to notice differences in other places. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And eventually, that intuitive awareness of our hunger and fullness cues will eventually catch on.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing from you is just listening to your body. Your body knows what it needs. It's just a matter of making the right choices for your body instead of what we think we should be doing, but really just getting in tune with our hunger cues. And for me, it's learning to chew my food. For some reason, I just like had the habit of just inhaling my food because it tastes so good. And so I did notice that once I started chewing my food more thoroughly, I gave my body enough time to be like, okay, we're good. Because before, when I wouldn't, it's like, I felt like I needed a bigger portion than what I actually needed because I am naturally like a petite person. And I was like, oh, wow, I actually didn't need that much food after all. Like, I can actually go with less food because I don't need that much food.
Yes,
So
that's
now I'm
another
kind of
great
like,
point, is chewing your food. I love that.
yeah. And so now I'm just having to get used to like, what is the actual portion that my body needs instead of like grabbing a big bowl. I'm like, yeah, that looks like enough. And then I finish it, but I'm like, oh, I actually could have just eaten 3/4 of that and I would have been fine. But now I'm stuffed,
Yep. Yep. I love that.
which makes you tired.
Yep. Absolutely.
Oh, okay. So talk to me about how nutrition plays a huge role in libido. I know a lot of people experience a drop in libido after they have kids, and it's just this thing that we've kind of come to accept. But us having an active libido, I'm not saying you have to be like a teenager again, but what are some things that we can look out for and start doing to help women out there who are struggling with their libido and they're like, I could go without sex for the rest of my life and I'm good, but I know my husband is not okay with that. So, what can you offer to people who are in this position where they're like, yeah, I'm good, but they're like, but I know this isn't good for my marriage?
Yeah. The first thing I'll say is that libido is this subjective feeling that's different for everybody, right? So, like you said, it's noticing what your normal is and being willing to say, I can tell that for me personally, that this is not how it should be. It's hard as women because we have a 28-day hormonal cycle where our levels are constantly changing. There's this cascade of events that's happening, and there's a lot that comes just with our cycle. And then you throw in pregnancy and postpartum and lactation, if that's something that's a part of your journey. And there's a whole bunch of different changes that come with each of those phases of our hormones. So it's no wonder that we feel like libido is this out of reach thing that just never feels like it'll be there because our bodies are changing all the time. So I want to make sure I address that because I don't want you to think that you should have this really high sex drive all the time. It's normal, and I use that word very cautiously because I know a lot of things have been conveyed as normal and are not. So when I say normal, know that I mean it. It's very normal to see fluctuations in your libido based on the pattern of your hormones, especially if you're pregnant, postpartum, breastfeeding. Now, if despite all of these fluctuations and all of these different phases of womanhood, of motherhood, your default state, your constant, is low libido, that's when we know that something's off, right? So let's talk to the mom who is not pregnant, postpartum, or breastfeeding. You have your cycle, hopefully. If you have a regular-ish cycle, you should see an increase in your libido as you approach ovulation. I mean, I'm sure we can all biologically figure out why that's supposed to be the case. You should see a rise in your libido as you approach ovulation, and then you should see not your libido disappear, but you should see it lower a little bit as you come out of ovulation into your luteal phase and then going into your period, right? So that's kind of the cycle of libido there. If you are approaching ovulation and you're like, I want nothing to do with my partner, then I would look at how are you supporting your hormones? Hormones are messengers. A lot of people are like, well, it's just your hormones. We're hormonal. That's just how we are as women. Hormones are messengers. They need a message to send. They need someone to give them the message. They need to know where to send the message and when. And then they also need the recipient to know that they're coming and to receive that message correctly. So there's a lot of moving parts here. And all of those moving parts require nutrients from our food to work. So if we are deficient in certain nutrients, our hormones are going to start communicating through things like low libido that something's off. So that's how I would describe it with your cycle. Pregnancy, I don't know how it is for other women. For me personally, my libido is always highest during pregnancy. I'm like, I am the sexiest woman alive. We can party all the time. Like, pregnancy is awesome for me personally. This is because estrogen is rising and progesterone is also rising. And your body is getting a surplus of all of your sex hormones that support libido. So now you can probably think, okay, well, if pregnancy has that rise, then postpartum has to be the opposite, right? It is normal to have a low sex drive in the early weeks postpartum. You just had a baby. Your body wants nothing to do with sex because it's trying to heal. It's trying to take care of this new human. There's a lot of stuff that's in the wrong place and is probably cut open and all that stuff. So that's fine. Another thing to consider is that the hormone prolactin that's responsible for lactation has an inverse relationship with our sex hormones and therefore our libido. So if you're breastfeeding, you're probably going to experience a little bit lower libido than like what your normal is, just because you have excess levels of prolactin to make sure that you can successfully breastfeed your baby. that being said, you should still have sexual desire. So, with all these different phases that we talked about, the most important thing is supporting our hormones wherever they're at in whatever phase of motherhood we're in. This looks like eating a nutrient rich diet that has a variety of color, that has a variety of fruits and vegetables. If you are able to eat animal protein, I know some people choose not to for religious reasons. If you have a very specific medical condition that prohibits you from animal protein, I'm going to I'm going to caution you to make sure that that is like definitely outlined by your doctor. But if you can eat animal protein, that should be a very big part of your diet because animal proteins are rich in amino acids, which are the building blocks for our hormones and our neurotransmitters in our brain. And they're also mineral rich, which supports our cells at a cellular level. So, animal protein, if I'm talking estrogen, we're thinking things like dark leafy greens and cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts. Um, and also fiber rich foods like flaxseed. And um, my favorite is making starches and then putting them in the fridge and then reheating them because that increases their resistant starch and it basically like adds fiber without having to add any more ingredients to your food.
I heard about that with rice.
Yes. Yes. Rice is, quote, healthier if you make it, refrigerate it, and then reheat it.
Interesting.
And same thing goes for pasta and potatoes as well.
Oh, well, perfect. Because I started meal prepping like a month ago where I just like spend hours cooking on Sunday because I love good flavored food. I don't like the quick dinner stuff during the
Mhm.
week. So, like this week, I made what I make. I made chicken noodle soup with like, I use like actual chicken backbones to like make the bone broth first. And then I had beef stew included with like chuck meat and oxtail. And then also bolognese pasta sauce. And so, like, I've got all these things refrigerated, and it sounds like that's better for us. But really, I'm just trying to save time.
See, but your effort to try and make healthier choices in one area had an impact in this other area that you didn't even recognize, but yet you're seeing the benefits anyway, right? So yeah, dark leafy greens, fiber rich foods. And then I mentioned this earlier, but supporting methylation. And the reason that's important is because your body has to convert estrogen to testosterone. So this is also important for men. The majority of their testosterone comes from estrogen production. Their body has to convert it. Our body just does that less. So we are more estrogen than testosterone as women. So you have to be able to methylate your estrogen. And then you also have to be able to detox your estrogen, meaning get rid of the excess that you don't need. And that happens through the liver. And the liver is responsible for filtering all of the stuff that we don't need in our body. So things like alcohol, things like excess hormones, um, things like the toxins in our environment that we just naturally come in contact with. That's all the liver's job. And the vitamins that are responsible for methylation, so the conversion, are also responsible for supporting our liver through the detox phase that happens daily. So supporting your liver is going to be huge. Um, you can do that through your food. You can do that through supporting your lymphatic system. So, like dry brushing and getting your lymphatic system going, making sure that everything's flowing. You can do that with red light therapy. Um, and then you can also take a specific supplement that's geared towards liver support. This isn't super popular, but one of my favorite brands, Just Ingredients, came out with a liver support supplement that I recommend for anyone who is struggling with methylation or struggling with liver detox or has had decades of beauty products put in their body that are full of really fake estrogen. Um, So that would be another thing, actually, now that I think about it. Um, Getting rid of all of your beauty products that still have parabens, phthalates, formaldehyde,
Yes.
all of that stuff, because those all have pretend estrogen in them, and your body doesn't know what to do with that. And so it puts it on the liver and says, figure out what to do with it. But then your liver doesn't know what to do with it. So it just builds up in your body. And then now you have a whole bunch of things that look like estrogen, but they're not. And so then it tricks your body and says, oh, well, I don't know where this estrogen came from. I didn't make it, but it's here. So I guess I don't need to make I don't need to make as much estrogen as I thought. And then your libido starts to change. So, um,
Interesting.
quick tangent, making sure that your beauty products are actually non-toxic and clean, because
Yes.
that will help support your liver, and it will help re-regulate your balance of estrogen and progesterone in your body.
That's something that I've been doing for years just because, like, skin is our biggest organ.
Mhm.
So you should make sure that you're putting the right stuff on it because it stays on your face for so long and you're absorbing it. So I have had a lot of fun discovering different clean brands, and I'm so excited there are more out there now than before. But yeah, hair products or skin products, like anything that you put on your body, it's not just what you're eating, right? But even then, there's that part, all the processed foods, and they're delicious, but there's a
Yep.
lot of stuff in there that we don't need. And I hate that that's the easy, grab and go kind of stuff that a lot of moms tend to lean on because how we're living today is not how we were designed to live. And we're often doing it alone. Like you should understand out of all people because you're a military family. Like you are constantly moving around. You have to rebuild your village all the time. And so, I mean, I'm not trying to go on a tangent here, but sometimes we just have to figure out what is best for us and make concessions some places, but understand the impact of what our choices mean for us, right? Because it's not like I don't have any processed food in my home. That sometimes that literally is the easiest thing for my kids to grab to bring to school for lunch. Like I'm not making a home cooked meal every day for them to bring to school. That's just
Yep.
not what's going to happen. But anyway, okay, so you shared so much during this episode, and I'm going to try and recap for the listeners. So feel free to like chime in and be like, oh, this is really important too.
Okay.
So what I heard from you is listen to your body. Like that is the like overarching theme of this episode is listen to your body. And that if you are able to figure out how to support yourself and how your body works, you're going to notice positive changes in your libido, in your energy, in your ability to keep up with your kids and not need so much caffeine. Although I will put a plug in here. So I drink tea, but I only drink 1 cup a day. And I started drinking tea with adaptogens, so functional mushrooms. And I have noticed a humongous difference that in combination with a colostrum powder that I started taking. I can include the links to these products in the show notes, but I've noticed such a huge difference because they have like these bionutrients in them. Like, are you familiar with that at all? And do you recommend that to your clients?
Yes. I wouldn't recommend it as like your first intervention if you're looking to make changes. Because if you think about a garden, if you think about a garden that's struggling to grow plants, and you come in and you are better about giving it sunlight, better about watering it, maybe you do an overhaul on the soil, but there's still weeds in the garden,
Mm-hmm.
there's only so much you can do, right? So I would definitely say that those are great options after you've addressed the foundational stuff that we talked
Yeah.
about, right? Because I don't want you to think, oh, well, I can just switch from coffee to tea and maybe add, some mushrooms or some adaptogens, and then that will solve my problem, because it's not addressing
Right.
the foundations, and it might work for a little bit and then you'll notice that it doesn't work anymore. But I do
Yeah.
love them. I love ashwagandha. I love
Mm-hmm.
maca root. I love lion's mane. My only
Yes,
caution,
reishi.
yes. My only caution is for my pregnant and postpartum mamas.
Yes.
Adaptogens um, are really powerful, and there's not a lot of scientific research yet that helps us understand how to use those safely. So if you're pregnant or postpartum breastfeeding, I've got other resources that will help you have the same benefits without taking the risk of using those natural adaptogens.
Okay, that's good to know. So these extra things are just to be seen as enhancing a healthy routine for yourself. So establish the healthy routine and then add that stuff if you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. If
Okay.
you're like, okay, I just need a little bit more, what else can I do? Right. That's why there's
Yeah.
supplements. They're meant to
Right.
supplement the little tiny holes or the little tiny cracks just
Not
because we're human and
replace.
we're not perfect. It's not meant to be the soil that we're growing our garden. It's meant
Right.
to be like, this little thing that we put in the soil to support the soil.
Yes, it's the fertilizer.
Yeah. I don't garden, so I'm like
That's
using an
okay. I
analogy
have a
where
black thumb. I
I love
always
it.
joke it's like it's either my kids or the plants, and I'm obligated to take care of the kids. So we'll
Yep.
just go with that. When they're older, then I'll be a plant lady, maybe.
Maybe.
Okay, so back to the recap. So, making sure that you have a balanced plate is also really important. Prioritizing protein, fat, and fiber. Eating a colorful diet is always going to be helpful too. And noticing how your libido fluctuates throughout your cycle. I think that in itself is like a humongous thing that I wish more women would pay attention to, is how we are not like men. Men operate on a 24-hour cycle and they're literally the same. Like they're fine. They go to sleep and then they're fine. Whereas we have fluctuating energy levels throughout the month. We have fluctuating libido throughout the month, and just noticing where you are at your cycles, as well as your mood. I know that's a
Yep.
huge one. Did I leave anything out?
No, that's great. Yeah, I think to even summarize that even more with the libido, taking the pressure off of I have to have libido like my husband does, or
Oh,
my libido
yes.
has to be here all the time for me to be normal, or for me to be healthy, or for me to be a good wife. Libido is a beautiful thing, and it's also an indication of how our body is functioning as a whole. And like we talked about, like you said, it's supposed to fluctuate. So giving yourself that grace and saying, I don't have to be at 100 all the time to be a good wife. And saying, okay, maybe I take advantage when I'm approaching ovulation and I know my libido is going to be higher, and maybe I initiate for a couple days, or, whatever is a part of your marriage. But, leaning into that and then saying, okay, now that I'm past ovulation, it's not that I don't want sex anymore, or that I can't have sex anymore. Maybe it's just I need a little bit more support to be turned on or to be interested, and communicating that with your husband and being like, hey, just so you know, this last half of my cycle, naturally, I'm going to have a lower libido, but that does not mean that I don't want to be with you. That doesn't mean that I'm not interested in spending time with you. It just means I need a little bit more support and a little bit more grace, right? And then telling yourself, okay, I'm remembering that this is where I'm at, and it might take a little bit longer to get turned on. It might take a little bit longer to reach climax, but that's okay. That doesn't mean I'm bad. That doesn't mean I'm broken. It just means that that's where I'm at, and I'm willing to work with it and help my husband meet me where I'm at so that we can still have a thriving relationship.
You're spot on, because it does change, right? Sometimes we do reach arousal a lot easier, especially during the ovulation
Mm-hmm.
stage. And I love that you mentioned that we may need more support from our spouse, because it's true. During particular parts of our cycle, we're going to feel a lot more tired than usual. Also, our days aren't the same all the time. Sometimes there are more stressful days than others. And sometimes we are more capable of handling that stress than others. And so just giving yourself grace and communicating with your husband exactly what you're needing, maybe like, hey, I am already drained. And I know today was our night to connect if you have it scheduled, right? Then you could say, I want to make that happen still, but I'm going to need additional support. My husband and I joke that we trade sex for chores because, like, literally that's what I need sometimes is
I
for me
love it.
to, like, go get ready for bed earlier and have that alone time reading before we connect. And so he will do the dishes or he will put the kids to bed so that I can relax and actually be interested and present in the time that we are being physical with each other. Because if not, it's like, sorry, I'm just going to go to sleep. It's just not happening.
Yeah. I love it. And even like mixing up when stuff happens, or I don't know, a lot of us fall into the trap of, well, I don't know. This has been my experience sometimes, and with some other moms that I talk to. A lot of us fall into the trap of it's an end of the day thing. Like after our to do list is done, after the kids go to bed, but that's when we're usually most tired and most worn
Yep.
out. So I'm not saying you can't ever have fun at the end of the day, but maybe like switching it up. If you know that you're in your luteal phase, or you know that, oh boy, okay, tomorrow's going to be my really busy day, but it's also like our day to connect. Maybe like I don't know, find something in the middle of the day, or maybe I wake up 20 minutes earlier and I surprise him in the morning, right? Like trying to mix it up so that you're not falling victim to, it's the end of the day. I'm so tired. I really do want to connect, but I'm so
Yep.
tired.
Yeah. No, sometimes all I really need is a nap. So like if it's, one of those nights it's like, oh yeah, we were supposed to connect and I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm so done. I will literally wake up early so that I feel refreshed, and he's always down because he's like,
He's
oh,
a
okay.
dude.
Like, yeah, he's a dude. Like that's the number one motivator. So it's like, hey, if I need support and I let him know, like that's what's waiting for him at the end of it, he's going to do all the things because he knows what's waiting for him. And
Yep.
so it's nice that when we become more aware of what we're needing and we're able to communicate, hey, I want to do this, and these are the things I need to be able to do that they can become more understanding and aware of how we work. It's not that we're just like a no and that's it. It's like a no right now. And let's continue this conversation about what it would take for it to get to a yes, and when will that be, so that they know we're trying, right? It's not like, oh, no, it sucks for you. You can go handle it yourself in the bathroom. Like, no, no, no. Like, that's not what we're trying to say, you know? We are complicated. Our hormones, like we are literally driven by our hormones, and our hormones a lot more complicated than men. And so I think the more we learn about it, the more we do what Brooke is suggesting with, really nourishing ourselves to support our hormones, the better off we're going to be as a whole. So
Absolutely.
so much for everything that you shared, Brooke. I know that people are going to want to learn more from you. So where is the best place for them to connect with you?
You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at The Well Nourished Mama. I also have my website that has hundreds of recipes for every stage of motherhood. I've got informational articles and resources on there. I've got cookbooks if you're interested in specific phases of your life that need specific nutrition. And then I also have my own podcast, the Well Nourished Mama podcast. And Michelle will be a guest on here very soon. So be sure to tune in so you can hear Michelle be on the other end of the microphone for that one.
Can't wait. Thank you so much for being part of this show. And listeners, thanks for making it all the way to the end. I hope that you're walking away with so many tips to help support your libido, your energy, your journey through motherhood, because you deserve to feel your best so that you can enjoy the process. Okay. Like motherhood is your experience, and I want you to have the best motherhood possible. So if you love this episode, let us know, reach out to us, let us know what you loved most about it and what your favorite takeaway was, because we love hearing from our listeners. And if you know someone that could benefit from hearing this episode, Do her a solid, share this episode, and if you love this show, please leave a rating and review on iTunes and Spotify. I would be so, so grateful. All right, until the next episode, I'll see you then. Bye. That's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, please send me a message over on Instagram at Michelle Perta Coaching to let me know what you loved most about it. Hearing from my listeners is my absolute favorite. And if you've been loving this podcast, please leave a rating and review. This will help people like you find the show and get the help they need. Catch you here on the next episode. Bye.